this is Caesar, and I'm back finally with another episode of The Juice. I had a weird off season. Been a while since I made a video. Now all I do is make baits, and that's all I do. I don't really have time to do nothing except for make baits. But it's really cool, really great. Fish a little less. It's been a weird year. I've been trying to think of a good episode to put out there that has good content, not just like buy this, use that. This line's cool, that line's cool. You know, there's a million of those out there, and that's not really what I wanted to do with this. So I'm going to try to give you some juice, especially if you live in the Delta. But I'm sure this applies everywhere else, just kind of factoring in all your variables and making it work. You know, just putting all the pieces together. I mean, that's why I like to fish. It isn't like the reeling in the fish and catching 30. It's like unlocking the puzzle. That's what gets me out there. So I'm gonna do like a review of some fish that I've caught on video, the 2 this year, and one from last year. I think that muskrat fish from a couple years ago actually, but it's on video. And I can map it all out. So I'll go through the reason why I chose the bait, the reason why I chose the spot, the conditions, and tell you exactly where I caught it. So, alright, so we'll do my latest fish first. That one I caught was around 9-10 pounds on my fat wake. That's what I'm calling it. So our year's been really weird. It's been kind of like it got real warm in February. The water came up into the 60s, and then it dropped back down to like 49. So it hasn't even been close to a normal spring for me. I don't even think I've got a wake fish on top of any size yet, which is crazy. But so when I went out on this trip, I was really like, this was recently after it warmed up again. Fish had started moving to beds or thinking about beds, and people were talking about the fish on beds, but I couldn't find any stagers. Like, I knew that there was plenty of bucks up, but I was really just targeting staging fish. Even if there was some early post-spawn fish, I was going to take the big mamas, even though they're skinny. So this flat that I'm fishing is a flat that goes back into an area, into a slough that gets a lot of spawning fish. A lot of people go in there and pound them, holds big fish and stuff. This is just kind of like a transitionary in on the Delta. We have sloughs that are kind of like roadways, and the fish follow them. So this is a flat off to the side on the way back in. And the way it's set up is, there is, how would I do this? So there's a point that comes around, and then it opens up into this flat here. So the current comes around like this, and the slough comes this way. This is all levee. So all this is water through the middle here, and then this opens up into a flat. There's kind of like a little area here with toolies, which creates some vertical cover and also healthy weeds, but most of this is weeds all through here. Really, the key for me to this flat being productive, is that once it dips in and then it comes back out, there's wood here, toolies here, and nothing else throughout here, right? But the key is that these are sparse. Like, here's a clump. There'll be clumps of this grass. These circles are clumps, by the way. And then here, all this is grass here. This is a solid bed. Maybe there's a clump in here. So all this through here are lanes and holes that create hard bottom. Now, everywhere I've been, hard bottom holes is really a key to big fish. I mean, it's just how it goes. If you're coming to an area that has a softer bottom, you have a sand spot, they won't necessarily be in the sand spot. Say, oh, this is weeds around, and this is your bare spot. The fish will position here, depending on which way the current's coming. On the delta, we have current. So if the current's coming this way, you know, there'll probably be some definitely position in this area behind these weeds, because the weeds will lay back like this. This is a weed. The current's coming this way. The weeds will lay back, and the fish can just sit there. They're not in the current. You know, it can be ripping. So those hard bottom holes are the key to this area, right? There's also, on the delta, most of the time, this is the shore. This is the weed bed. We have a trough. I don't even know how to spell that, to tell you the truth. But there's a trough there. It's like a canal between the shore and the weeds. At high tide, it's very large. Low tide, it gets skinny. So they're really going to position up against this trough, especially because this flat is an east bank. So as the sun comes up, it stays shaded. And this is the shaded bank. So that trough holds fish early. So this just gives the fish a lot of options. So you have this flat, this rudimentary drawing of the flat. In the morning, if it's a high tide, low light, they could use this area here, this trough, and eat. But and so can the bait fish, you know, just like in this area, there's tules and wood. They could use this to patrol back and forth and eat the small bait fish. As they pull back, there's dense cover. And there's also this hollow here with spotty, hard bottom spots for them to rest. And they'll rest with their bellies on the bottom of this stuff. Then, this weed line goes all the way out. When it gets to the lowest, the current is highest in this area. Say coming in, going out, whichever way it's going. The current is highest here, even though it sweeps there. So, like, say the current's coming this way. When the current's coming in, it's really going to get in here. So this area is going to be where your predators are going to stay, because that's where the food is going to be swept. You might get some in this eddy here, but you got to remember this is a non-current area, and this is going to be your high percentage zone, even if it's in here. So it'll be close to this area where the current's going to sweep. But as the tide gets low, at the lowest, a lot of times this outside edge is all you need to focus on. So this flat, what it does is provide these fish everything they need, from shade in the morning to moving out on the low tide, high tide. It provides the bait fish everything they need to do. So when I hit this flat, the flat was here, the fish came here. When I fished this spot, the wind was coming this way. That's where the fish was. The current was going this way. Now, normally, I would fish into the current so I could bring my bait naturally. But I'm pretty big on being quiet and letting the wind push me in, and also not fighting the fish. It makes you more efficient. So I let the wind drift me across this spot, and it just worked out perfect. My boat stayed out here, and I cross-casted this flat because it was really windy, 20 plus miles an hour. And when I made the cast in there, the fish just came up and grabbed it. There's a piece of wood here. There's a tule flat here. But it was in this transitionary area, what I like to call it, when you have cover or something shallow and then a bare spot that opens up into something else. They're going to use it. It's almost like a funnel, like Bob Murphy talks, or Bill Murphy talks about. You know, if you have a flat that goes like this, if you have a shore that goes like this is your shore. And then it comes out, and this is a flat. And this isn't, but this swings out shallow. This is all steep. Say this is 8 feet. And then this comes out, and this is 5 feet, but this is 8 still in here. Those big fish are going to come right there. That's the juice. That's the juice for me on the Delta. Straight up. The big fish, this is all good. They'll move across this and flat. All across this flat and feed. But this is where they come. That's it. I mean, I don't know how much more... I don't know how much simpler I can make it. That's the juice. Right there. Straight up. All over the Delta. Alright. So that, because it's a transitionary zone. It's like a funnel. Like what Bill Murphy was talking about. It's where they can move up and down quickly, fastly. That's not a word. Where they can move up and down quickly and transition from the deeper stuff to the shallower stuff. You know, and if that's not why, whatever reason it is, they live there. So I used the wind to my advantage. It came off that high percentage zone, like a transitionary zone within the flat. The flat has everything that I wanted it to have. It has hard bottom. It has stuff at the low tide, high tide. If you're at your lake, you're going to want stuff for lower light. Wind, how does the wind blow on that bank? Or when the wind's blowing, which banks is it blowing on at the right angle with the sun? There's a lot of variables. So when I approach this flat, I know that this flat they use for transition, to transition. People aren't catching a lot of fish in transition when I caught this fish. But I decided to target the largest fish I could. It's the only bite I got in like 3 days, so it's not like I'm out there smashing them. But it came where it should have. The wind was here, lined up. The current was coming this way. So all that directed this fish to position himself there. On that bank, even though it was lower tide, and this was there's only maybe a foot of water over the weeds. He could have used this bigger bare open area. He didn't. I fished through there, but that fish decided to stay tucked in here, close to the wood, close to the tules, close to different cover. Like he had 3 options there instead of just the one. So that was awesome. Cool deal. So the glide fish that I caught. We're in this big lake. People like to blast it on social media. Everybody wants to be a smarty pants. So yeah, it was Little Mandeville. It's easy to see. We're in Little Mandeville. On the north side. Everyone fishes there. It's no secret. So GPS it up, fellas. So Mandeville's a big lake. On the Delta we have these flooded lakes. They used to be farms surrounded by levees in the early 1900s, even later, and the farmer eventually just, wasn't worth it anymore. So now they're flooded. They're full of orchards, creek channels, all this stuff, right? So this day it was blowing like 40. It was, I think it said gusts to 35. It was super blowing. And that's actually the reason we positioned on this north bank. Wind was coming from the north. Bad conditions. Mandeville set up this big open area, right? We tried this fat cove here. There was like 20 boats in here during a tournament. Everybody was punching. I know the area. There's a lot of floating hyacinth. So I noticed people targeting in here. It was hard to fish because it was so windy. There was muddy spots. So me and Danny decided to head over and hit this stuff on the north side, away from the boats. Everybody's catching 2-3 pounders. Got a couple on a bluegill glide that was okay, but so on this north side you have this bank, and then you have a cut, and then you have a little, and then you have more bank, and then you have a cut, and then in here you'll have little breaks, and these are little breaks that go into this main sluice, and this is all the lake. Mandeville, whatever, Mandeville. So, current comes in. All this is lead bed, super shallow, right? Great area. These little cuts are really where you want to be. These are little tiny cuts that the current funnels through, right? So that's what I came in there targeting. Me and Danny went through, targeted those things because they concentrate the bait fish. They concentrate everything. Everything revolves around the current, the Delta, right? So we fish down those shores and we get nothing. Typical fish in the trough. There'll be, floating cover. This is floating cover along the shore, and then this is the weed line. There'll be a hard bottom trough all along that north bank in Mandeville. So really uptight, you can fish that trough, especially when you get wind from the south. If you get wind from the south, it'll blow in here, and those fish will really position up in there. And that's what I was looking for. Well, that didn't pan out. So I was talking to Danny, and off to this east side, or the west side of Mandeville, there's another bank that it's like a big bowl. And there's more floating vegetation that comes out. All this is like floating vegetation in here, hyacinth and stuff, canopy. And then out here, these big weed beds and trees from the old orchard. Now, overhead cover, you haven't heard me say before, is like the key. That's the key to big fish for me. Like docks, wherever you are. I mean, you see Mike Gilbert catch the dock monster. Dock fishing is always great. People punch on the Delta. It's the same thing with swim baits. Big fish love the security of overhead canopy. And if you can mix that together with bottom content, features, structures, then you're golden, right? So, I just made the comment to Danny. Here's a cut here. Current sweeping in. I just made a comment to Danny that I've fished this area multiple times, seen fish, and never really cracked them here. On these banks, I've caught almost 40 pounds sometimes. Caught fish near 10, done it year after year. It's a great bait, Out here, the bank I showed earlier on the north side. This is also on the north side, but this is the west side here. This is after it turns. So you guys can just go fish all these spots if you want. I'll see you out there. As this sweeps in, it creates an eddy here. So I was telling Danny that it's a great area. It's deeper. It's kind of a bowl. There's less current. It's clear water. I don't know why I've never caught a big fish there, but I've never caught one there. We decided to fish it anyways, right? So canopy, like I do, throwing this glide right down the edge. You can see in the video. Right when it gets to that point, those little points that stick out are always key, especially with floating cover. And I twitch it twice, and that fish comes out from, this is probably 4 feet at the time, and my glide was this far under the water. So she's sitting with her back under that canopy. As soon as it swims by, crunch, she eats it, right? So even after throwing these weights and stuff all down these banks, and also throwing my glide, there was no success. 0. But the day before, I was doing the same thing in a different area of the Delta. Very similar to Mandeville. Another lake called Little Franks. North shore of Little Franks. Same thing. Cut, right? Overhead cover. I'm going down with my glide bait because it seemed like the best presentation. I like that glide bait to stay up right underneath that canopy where those fish are. Doesn't always work out, but early in the year like that, sometimes it can. That 7-inch profile, whatever it is. So I come down this bank. I got current coming in. Incoming tide. I come down this bank and I miss a fish right here. Overhead cover on a toolie patch. I throw my glide bait by, bring it, and for whatever reason it crushes it, misses it. No clue how it missed it. So I was pissed, but it was a big fish. I could tell the way it ate and stuff was a big fish, so I wasn't mad about that. Go down the bank again, overhead cover, toolie patch, bring it by, or bring the bait by this way, casting this way, reel it here. Same thing, just huge boil, fish misses the glide. I was heartbroken. Tide diminished, didn't happen. It was so windy the next day when I caught that fish in Mandeville, this was unfishable. So I took this information that I knew from from Little Franks, and transferred it to Mandeville that day. It took me a while because we fished around, pounced around, but once I was throwing, other baits, glides hadn't worked anywhere else in the day. It wasn't like it was a glide bite that you knew that you had to throw the glide to get the bite. But I knew that those fish yesterday, the big fish were reacting on glides. Guys were casting them on everything from bunching to rip baits to rattle traps, catching 3-pounders. That's not what we're looking for. So I had the confidence to pick that glide up again because I knew that the big fish were keying on it for whatever reason. And if you notice, there was a cut, the bank went around, overhead cover, current, fish here. Same thing happening with little frames. So there's always going to be consistency with those big fish, especially on the Delta. It's going to be overhead cover, weeds, current. I mean, you can see that. But the other part is in this huge array of weed growth, you want to have those hard bottom spots, whether it be a hard bottom like this or a lane. This would be a hard bottom lane with weeds on both sides of it. And this will just be bare. That's key to collecting fish. For whatever reason, if they use it and dart out into that spot to open to eat in there, I'm not sure. But they usually eat near the edges for me. All right, one more. It's getting long. The muskrat fish. I'll post these casts to catch up to. So the muskrat fish, I'm going down a regular old bank. These are all toolies. And then there's a weed line. This area is a piece of wood. Another piece of wood. And then it gets to a bend. I mean, that's kind of an exaggerated version there. It gets to a bend like that. And then this is all a slough. And the whole slough turns that way. So this could be good. Let's have patchy weeds. Hard line. Maybe a little trough. Small fish use this. But once you get towards this curve, you'll see a toolie patch here, and then another patch of toolie patches here. And then there's a flat here. This is like a sparse weed flat. And these are toolies that grow out with weeds from them. So as I'm coming down this bank, that was my key. You kind of see me set up. This is the toolie patch. These are the weeds here, and then there's another weed patch here. I cast in at this angle from my boat. I didn't cast in at this angle because I'm fishing this weed line and then wanted to cast the toolies. I fished the bank enough to know that here's my patch, and it's a hard bottom area. Now the thing about a hard bottom area, it's not just it's the hard bottom. Most of the time, if you have your weeds growing, and this is a big flat of weeds, and you have your weeds here, and this is hard bottom, you're going to see this. Even if this is only 8 inches. Money. They'll sit with their bellies on the bottom. They'll sit right here. And right here. Right up against the side like you can't see them. Like a little kid hiding behind a stick. Like you can't see him. Those hard bottomed areas are key. So I bring that pass through that angle, the weed patch here, weed here, and I make that cast and bring it through here. That fish is sitting in here. Whether he was sitting in this hard bottom area or he was positioned here, or here. As I made that cast, of course, current coming this way in the slough, I'm bringing it with the current. You can see me, I come through, I pause a couple times, I'm trying to get him to go, and she keeps it right there. Now, I mean, when you go down the bank, you have to make random casts if you're just rolling. But it's important to remember once you get to that key structure, especially if you know your cover, to make that right cast. Stop casting, make sure you get lined up to make the cast, and make that proper presentation because, it's going to happen when it comes like that. So, I mean, that's the same thing. This was towards the summer. There was a lot of current in this area, a lot of small fish. And the reason I chose to set that up is it was really on that fish just experience. There wasn't like a lot of wind that day, anything like that. That's just a high percentage area that I know that big fish use. And anytime I find something like that, I mean, like I said, this is exaggerated. This is the shoreline of the slough. And anytime I find like this, and then a lot of times it'll turn into a flat in a turn. And that can be good. When it does that, this is the area I fish. And then I'll fish up in here for roamers, but I'll really burn through this. But this is going to be your high percentage area. But this bank, doesn't do that. This bank comes through like this and stays like that. But the key is where the toolies are. This little weed flat does this. And then there's a flat, and it comes out, and then this is like this. You know, that little dip right there in the weeds, I think it's because the depth drops, you know. But that little dip into those toolies, that's it. Just like I talked about earlier. That's the deal. That's the juice. That's where they're at. I don't know. Other stuff can work for other people. I'm sure it does. I've lived here since '97. I had a couple of years off not fishing, but I fish here a lot. So I don't always talk about everything that we catch, but we do pretty good. So when you're finding these spots in these big fish, like there's a lot more than just like, oh, that's a good spot. Like when you get there, try to break down all the variables, why it would be there. And you're going to strike out 100 times. I do. I don't catch a bunch of fish. I strike out most of the time. But if you're concentrating on those larger fish areas, it's hard if you haven't caught a lot of big fish, but you could just look. Like sometimes when I pre-fish, I just look. In a shallow fishery with clear water, you could see them. Even in muddier water, you could see them in the shallow. They'll get right with their bellies up tight. I fish 5 feet and less all year. Like I catch some deeper, but they're, especially if you get sun in the winter. So, all right. So I just wanted to break that down and give you the illustration of exactly where those fish came out of. Hopefully you could follow the drawings. But things to remember. Number 1. Overhead cover. I think overhead cover is one of the best attractions, like the best attractors for large alpha predator bass in your system. It always has worked everywhere else I've went. Shade lines, whether it be shade lines or actual canopy, those big fish are going to gravitate. 2. Hard bottom. Hard bottom, if it's a big, huge, flat, not so much. But hard bottom, what should I say? Holes and cuts. Areas in a big, expansive weed flat that you're going to have, or any type of weed line, whatever. When you have that dip, cut, hole, maybe it's a rock in the middle, all that stuff is going to attract all forms of life. So that's going to be another key area. This is cover. This is structure. This is a place to target. This is, most of my waypoints now that I have a GPS are this. Hard bottom holes. I mark the hard bottom stuff, and it pays off. So, hard bottom, overhead cover, and then 3. That transition funnel is what I call it. Like I was saying, the transition funnel is that area of you have a big weed flat, headed down, and you get that dip. That's the transition funnel. That's the area they're going to use to move in and out. Like Bill Murphy said, if they get to the deeper water, wherever you are, that transitionary funnel is going to be key, especially on the Delta. Delta, if you have a flat like that and you get that dip, that's where you want to fish, straight up, all around. I think when you get those 3 things, also, when you're dealing with overhead cover, you'll have like a line of hyacinth. When you get that little thing that pokes out, little protrusion that pokes out, or a big point that pokes out like that, even if it's just a little piece, like a small 2x2 patch that sticks out from the rest, that's where you want to target. That's where they're going to come at. That's where the eater's position. They're probably in here. But then when they move out to eat and feed, they move out to those points. So that's some juice for you. That's some juice of where I caught it, where I caught that fish. That one fish, the other areas are very similar. And I mean, those three things right there, especially, I mean, if you want to get expansive, and it's pretty obvious, but if you could add wood to this, then you're really good. Because the one I'm not including that should be a given on the Delta, that trumps all of this, is current and tide. Current and tide, if you don't have current, 99% of the time you're losing out here. So, getting the current, tides are different. Just pay attention to your tide. You know, if they bite 10 minutes before the end of the low tide, that's when they bite. Even if it's tomorrow, it's an hour later. It'll be 10 minutes before the low tide. Half hour before the low tide. Hour before the low tide. Dial in your tides. Write it down. Take a picture with a timestamp on it. Do something. And if you want to get these fish in, the tide's the key. You got a 10, 15 minute window sign, you know, sometimes to show up, they're eating and they're done. So you can randomly fan cast around with a Cinco and get lucky, of course. But if you're not running tides or paying attention to your tides, you're, you know, then you're just getting lucky when you're catching. But current, overhead cover, hard bottom holes, transitionary funnels, and bonus round, you get some wood, you're in. You know, fish it. If you think a big fish is there, fish it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So you get here to go. All right, so that big fish came on this one. It's my fat wake. I just call it that because it's one of my OG baits I've made forever, and we've been catching fish on since before I named any baits. So big fat 8-inch wake bait. And the glide fish came on my Waking Crank glide. this is not the glide I caught it on. My buddy has that one right now. This is the one I'm throwing now. Golden Shiner. Pretty thin. 7.5 inches. Glides like a champ. I'll be putting small numbers of these out for everybody soon, but that's it. ST56 3X hooks. I love those hooks. Same hooks on these. On this here, you get the 3X hook, and it's super sharp. You're gonna get a penetration regardless. So, I'm carrying my new wraps. Get that dope. Also, so the fat wake fish came on my Spiralite Defiant Series 8'6" mag swim. That I love that 8'6" Defiant. It's straight money. You can't beat it for the price or in the range. Screw the price. You can't beat the 8'6" Defiant. Hands down. For the weight range it throws up to 11 ounces, you're not going to find a better rod. There it is. And the glide fish came on my 8-foot Spiralite Defiant, moderate fast. It's the 40-ton blank, so it has a faster, crisper action, but it's a moderate bend, so it doesn't have your normal fast action to it. It bends a little deeper. You can see in the video it bends right up. It's a great rod for throwing up to 4 or 5 ounces. Once I throw 4 or 5, I usually switch up. I move up to the 8'3" Maverick, because I feel like that's just a great rod for that 4 to 6 ounce range. But the 8-foot Defiant mod fast is like my do-it-all. I throw everything on it, from glides, Waking Cranks, hollow bellies, flip with it, frog with it, everything. So that was the stuff I use, and I always use Daiwa CBZs or the new Daiwa TWS Coastal 200. That's an amazing reel for the price. And the line I use, of course, P-Line PF, Co-Poly, the original. Even for my glide, I prefer the 20-pound, or I'll throw 25 too if it's in cover. It's really thin line for Co-Poly, but it's strong. The 20 is really strong. 25 is really strong, but the 20 is real thin. I really like the way it acts on the 20, and I don't have to. Excuse me. I really like the way it acts on the 20, and I don't have to go to fluoro. To be honest with you, I hate fluorocarbon. So, but the 20-pound PF works great. I don't have to deal with super pressured trout eaters in clear water that follow for 40 feet. Maybe that's why it doesn't matter. I don't know. But PF's fine. Co-Poly's fine.
you could spend a ton of money on fluorocarbon, but you're not going to catch more fish.